support. Today on Ring Collapse, we are going deep, all the way back to the origin of the problem, through the present, and we're going to ask honestly, is there a real way out of this? Part 1, where the hatred started, the McMahon doctrine. To understand what's happening right now, you need to go back to the man who built this company into a global empire, because the problems we have today are not accidents. They are a direct inheritance. Vince McMahon ran WWE for decades with an iron grip, and during that time he made a very deliberate, very conscious choice to treat tag team wrestling as a lesser product. And we know this not from speculation. We know it from the people who were in the room. Former WWE creative writer Freddie Prinze Jr. has spoken openly about McMahon's philosophy. His explicit issue with tag team wrestling came down to one thing: money. The sentiment, as Prinze relayed it, was essentially, why would I pay 4 guys for one match? That was the actual internal creative philosophy driving one of the most watched wrestling companies on the planet. Not what made for the best show, not what told the best story, what was cheapest. Now, I want to be fair here. From a pure business standpoint, in the territorial era, that logic made a certain kind of cold sense. Vince was building a monopoly. He needed singular stars he could plaster on billboards and sell to mainstream audiences. Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold, The Rock, these were one-man brands. A tag team is inherently harder to market that way because you're splitting the focus. By the time the Attitude Era hit, and rosters were loaded with factions and stables and managers everywhere, McMahon started looking at all of that collective talent as a payroll problem. Too many bodies, not enough singular stars. So what happened? The company started structurally devaluing tag wrestling. Not overnight, gradually. The way you slowly turn down a dial until one day the music stops and you didn't even notice it happening. Tag teams got bumped to pre-shows. Title matches became filler content between the real programs. The belts themselves became props used to set up, can they coexist? Storylines, which, if you're counting, is still one of the most recycled tropes in WWE today. You want proof that the talent felt this? The Revival, Scott Dawson, and Dash Wilder, 2 of the most technically gifted tag team wrestlers of their generation, men who had carried NXT to 5-star match territory, actually went to Vince McMahon's office and pleaded with him. They asked to help revitalize the division. And what did they get? Comedy segments, the infamous shaving cream incident, humiliation. They eventually left, went to AEW, became FTR, and built the exact legacy that WWE's main roster never allowed them to have. That's not just sad, that is criminal negligence of talent. Part 2, the Triple H era. Better in some ways, broken in others. When Vince stepped back and Triple H took over creative in 2022, the reaction from the wrestling community was almost euphoric, and honestly, some of that was deserved. The shows immediately got better. Match quality went up, long-term storytelling returned, and the company's financial numbers under TKO have been remarkable. But here's where I need you to pay close attention, because this is the part that gets glossed over. The tag team division is still a mess. It's a different kind of mess, sure. It's not being sabotaged out of fiscal contempt the way it was under Vince, but the structural problems killing tag team wrestling right now under Triple H are arguably just as damaging, even if they come from a different place. Let's start with title defenses, or more accurately, the lack of them. Finn Balor and JD McDonough had a stretch as World Tag Team Champions on Raw, where they went over 70 days without a title defense. 70 days. The titles were used as accessories, visual props to make the Judgment Day look dominant, while the actual Judgment Day storyline was really about Finn Balor's character arc, Liv Morgan's revenge saga, Dominic's personal drama, all singles-centered narratives. The tag titles were just jewelry. And then think about what's currently happening on. He is the oldest person to ever win this title. That's a fun trivia fact. But from a division building standpoint, the Usos are your World Tag Team Champions. Winning the belts back at the end of modern WWE history is being used as a transitional mechanism for a singles narrative. When your own roster members have publicly called out the booking, and Xavier Woods was vocal about the situation around the AJ Styles and Dragon Lee title change, something has gone very, very wrong.
I'm so sick and tired of these tossed together teams that don't care about tag team wrestling, getting shots, becoming champions because the people who are champions were handed shots when they shouldn't be a team in the first place. It just doesn't make any sense. These guys, they're singles performers.
3. The math problem, 5 matches, and the death of the midcard. Here's a structural argument that is genuinely underappreciated, and it goes beyond simply saying WWE doesn't care. Triple H has instituted a philosophy of 5-match premium live events. The reasoning is sound on paper. Give each match more time. Don't burn out the audience. Let the big stories breathe. From a match quality standpoint, this has worked. But here's the problem. 5 matches on a PLE card. You've got your main event, usually a top title match or a big singles blow-off. You've got a women's main event. You've got probably one other major singles program. By the time you get to 5, the tag team division, if it shows up at all, is almost never in the context of a traditional 2-on-2 championship match. Look at the data from recent PLE calendars. When tag matches appear on those cards, they are almost exclusively faction warfare multi-person matches, 6-man tags, war games, ladder matches with 4 or 5 teams. Or they are 2 major singles stars teaming for the night because the storyline required it. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns reluctantly teaming together is a single-star narrative, not a tag team one. The actual tag championships defended on go-home episodes of Raw and SmackDown the week before the PLE. Think about what that communicates to the audience. Premium live events are the important nights, the premium product, and the tag belts aren't important enough to be there. Week after week, you are conditioning the audience to see those titles as secondary, and then creative turns around and wonders why nobody cares when the champions are announced. This isn't a conspiracy, it's math. Part 4. The brand split when too much becomes too little. The brand extension was introduced in 2002 for very specific reasons. WWE had just absorbed WCW and ECW. The roster was enormous, and they needed a way to give everyone television time while creating 2 separate weekly dramas. That made sense in 2002. In 2026, the brand split is one of the primary reasons the tag team division is stagnant. Right now, you have the World Tag Team Championship on Raw and the WWE Tag Team Championship on SmackDown. 2 separate title lineages, 2 separate divisions, 2 rosters that almost never interact. On paper, that sounds like abundance. In practice, it creates 2 incredibly shallow divisions, and neither has enough depth to sustain meaningful long-term competition. Look at the SmackDown title picture right now. You just went in pieces around a board. And here's the kicker. While tag teams are strictly confined to their designated brand, top singles stars float between shows whenever the narrative demands it. The brand split is selectively enforced. It constrains the people with the least institutional power, while meaning nothing for the people at the top of the card. What has worked? Look at the Women's Tag Team Championship. Unified, traveling across all brands. When top female stars compete for a single set of titles, those titles carry genuine weight. There is no asterisk. No, technically they're the best on SmackDown. They are the champions. The answer for the men's division is staring everyone in the face. 1 set of titles, wandering champions, fresh cross-brand matchups. The math is not complicated. Part 5. The Usos, the exception that proves the rule. Whenever you make the argument that WWE doesn't care about tag teams, someone will bring up the Usos. And they should, because Jimmy and Jey Uso have had one of the greatest tag team runs in the history of this industry. Full stop. Their 622-day reign as unified champions was historic. Main eventing night, one of WrestleMania 39 against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, proved tag team wrestling can headline the biggest show in the world. But I need you to think critically about why the Usos succeeded where virtually everyone else has failed. First time, the Usos debuted in 2010. They had over a decade on the main roster before their legendary run truly began. They were never cut, they were never broken up prematurely and abandoned. That kind of longevity is practically unheard of in WWE's tag team landscape, and part of the reason it was granted to them is their family legacy. Sons of Rikishi, cousins of Roman Reigns. They had institutional protection that most tag teams simply do not have. Second, and this is the critical point, their legendary run was inseparable from the bloodline. The reason the Usos became main event acts was because they were stitched into the most important storyline in WWE at the time. Roman Reigns' tribal chief character was the engine. The Usos were the most prominent passengers. And what happened after that? Jey Uso had a brilliant solo run, winning the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 41 in a submission victory over Gunther. A massive moment. And then the company's response was entirely predictable. Reunite the Usos, put the titles on them, and use that title change as a mechanism to free AJ Styles for other programs. And even in that role, the booking narrative around them perfectly over an extremely rare period of time. They are not evidence that the system works. They are evidence of what's possible when the system occasionally, briefly, gets out of the way. Part 6. The makeshift team problem. If there is one creative habit that has done more damage to tag team wrestling's internal logic than anything else, it's the makeshift pairing. 2 established singles, wrestlers thrown together, often randomly, who then immediately roll through actual, dedicated tag teams and win the titles. I don't need to reach back into history for an example right now. Damian Priest and R-Truth are the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Damian Priest is a former World Heavyweight Champion. R-Truth is a beloved comedy act and veteran singles wrestler. They are not a tag team. They are 2 individuals who share a title. Sometimes the makeshift formula works. RK Bro worked because Randy Orton and Matt Riddle had undeniable chemistry, and the comedic contrast between their personas genuinely made television better. But what RK Bro's success created was a deeply harmful template, because if you can throw 2 popular single stars together and have them win the tag titles. What does that say about dedicated tag teams who've spent months developing chemistry, tandem offense, and a genuine team identity? It says their work is irrelevant. It says star power beats everything. It says the tag division is not a specialized discipline. It's just a prop waiting for bigger names to pick it up. Think about the great tag teams historically. The Road Warriors had the Doomsday Device. The Dudley Boys had the 3D. The Hart Foundation had a decade of perfectly choreographed tandem wrestling in their muscle memory. These weren't just moves. They were expressions of identity. They were proof that two people had genuinely invested in being a team. Makeshift pairings don't build that. They build back-to-back finishers and a novelty. And when those teams inevitably split, and they always split, the dedicated tag teams who got steamrolled along the way are left diminished, and the division is shallower than it was before. Part 7. The Jannetty Effect. How WWE destroys its own depth. Here's something I want you to really sit with, because in every team there's a Shawn Michaels waiting to emerge, and the other person becomes the martyr. The problem is, it doesn't actually work out cleanly most of the time, and WWE does it compulsively to teams that are nowhere near ready for it. Enzo Amore and Big Cass were one of the most genuinely over acts in WWE during their run. The crowd chanted along with every promo. The merchandise moved. The energy was completely real. WWE split them up before they had ever won a main roster tag team championship. And what happened to both of them afterward? Nothing good. The Iconics had extraordinary character synergy. Separating Peyton Royce and Billie Kay stripped both women of the very quality that made them stand out. Both eventually left the company. Heavy Machinery. Otis and Tucker split to give Otis a Money in the Bank moment that led nowhere meaningful, and Tucker never recovered professionally. The world's greatest tag team was separated by the draft in 2004. Shelton Benjamin found some mid-card success. Charlie Haas was left completely without direction. The history of WWE is littered with tag teams destroyed prematurely, leaving wreckage on both sides, and a division that has to rebuild from scratch every single time. And this is what guarantees the tag division can never build a genuine pantheon. You can't have legendary teams if you won't let teams have legendary runs. For everyone below the Usos, the clock is ticking from the moment the team forms. Part 8. How it's done elsewhere. NXT and AEW. Before I talk about AEW, let me be completely clear, this is not a WWE bad, AEW good segment. What I am telling you is that alternative models exist, they work, and WWE is actively choosing not to use them. Start with NXT. During the black and gold era in the mid to late 2010s, tag team wrestling was treated as a main event attraction. Teams like DIY, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa, The Revival, American Alpha, and the Undisputed Era were given time, storylines, real and ring psychology to develop. They produced matches that fans still talk about years later. That was Triple H booking those teams. The same Triple H now running the main roster. And then those teams got called up, and almost universally, the magic evaporated. The Revival were humiliated and left. Gargano and Ciampa, whose NXT blood feud is one of the most compelling stories in modern wrestling history, were reunited on the main roster as a smiling babyface team with zero direction. The creative machine absorbed them and produced nothing. This tells you something crucial. It is not a talent problem. WWE is entirely capable of booking world-class tag wrestling. They have proven it at every level below the main roster. They simply choose differently on the flagship shows. AEW, FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler are the clearest illustration of what's possible when a company genuinely commits to tag team wrestling as a main event vehicle. As the Revival in WWE, they were comedy fodder. In AEW, they became one of the most acclaimed tag teams of the modern era. Dax Harwood has been explicit about the difference. AEW actively gives tag teams premium television time, real storylines, main event slots on major shows. The division was built as a foundational pillar, not an afterthought. AEW has its own problems, and its own dropped storylines. I'm not here to pretend otherwise. But on the specific question of whether tag team wrestling can be treated with prestige in 2026, there is proof it works when the institutional will is there. Part 9. The fix what actually needs to happen. Practical structural changes, not fantasy booking things that would make an immediate, tangible difference. Number 1. Unify the men's tag team titles. I cannot say this loudly enough. One set of belts, wandering champions, Raw and SmackDown. The Women's Tag Team Championship proved this model works. When your champions are the undisputed best tag team in the entire company, not just the best on one show, those titles carry genuine weight. Fresh matchups across both brands become possible. Teams currently trapped in repetitive loops on one show would suddenly have a completely different landscape. The evidence is overwhelming. The argument against it is essentially inertia. Number 2. Get the titles on premium live events as actual championship matches, not 5-team gimmick ladder matches. Real tag team title matches where the division's best teams compete with real consequences. If you consistently send the tag belts home to TV, While the big stage is reserved for singles stars, you are training your audience to stop caring, and audiences are very good students. Here's where I land on all of this. The WWE Tag Team division is not struggling because the talent is bad. Look at that roster right now. The Usos, Motor City Machine Guns, the Creed Brothers, Street Profits, War Raiders, teams on both shows, putting on great matches despite the system working against them. The talent has always been there. The division is struggling because of choices. Choices made decades ago by a man who thought paying 4 people was wasteful. Choices being made right now by a creative structure that mathematically cannot fit tag wrestling into its 5-match PLE model. Choices to break up every team before they can build something lasting. Choices to maintain a brand split that leaves both divisions too thin to matter. The frustrating thing, the thing that makes this genuinely infuriating, rather than just disappointing, is that we have the proof on multiple fronts that when tag team wrestling is treated with respect, people respond to it. WrestleMania 39 Night 1 proved a tag team match can main event the biggest show in the world and get one of the most emotional reactions the modern era has ever produced. So, the question is never whether it's possible. We know it's possible. The question is whether WWE will choose to make it a priority, or whether the tag titles will keep being in the background, waiting for someone upstairs to remember they exist. I hope it changes. I genuinely do. Because when tag team wrestling is truly, properly, structurally good, there is nothing in professional wrestling that can match it. That's ring collapse. Tell me in the comments. Are you still invested in the WWE Tag Division, or have they completely lost you at this point? Subscribe if you want more honest, deep dive wrestling content like this. I'll see you in the next one.